You know, everyone's talking about the AI gold rush, the incredible new models, the apps that feel like science fiction. But here's the thing. The real story, the one that's going to decide the winners and losers for the next decade, isn't happening in the cloud. It's happening in the dirt, in factories, on the power grid. It's all about the massive physical infrastructure we have to build to make this revolution possible. So, let's get into it.
To really get a handle on the scale here, just let this number sink in for a second. $3 trillion. That's the estimated price tag just for AI data center infrastructure by 2030. And we're not talking about software code, we're talking about concrete, steel, and silicon. This is, and I'm not exaggerating, one of the largest infrastructure projects in human history. And you know, in any gold rush this big, the smartest money often follows the picks and shovels strategy. While everyone's out there digging for gold, or, in this case, building the next AI model, the real consistent fortunes are made by the folks selling the tools. So in this explainer, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to follow the money, find out who's selling these digital picks and shovels, and see why they've become the biggest bottlenecks in the entire AI industry.
Here's our roadmap. We're going to start right at the bottom with the absolute basics, power and space. Then we'll move up the stack to the chips, the brains of the operation. After that, we'll look at the special kind of fuel they need, memory. And finally, we'll see how all these choke points are basically splitting the AI world in two.
Okay, so let's start with the most fundamental bottleneck of all. It's easy to forget, but AI isn't magic floating in the cloud. It's physical. Before you can run a single line of code, you need a building to put the computers in, and you need a ton of electricity to power them.
And the demand for that electricity? It is just staggering. The world's total data center capacity is on track to more than double in just 5 years. Think about that. We're going to build more data center capacity in the next 5 years than we have in all of human history up to this point. And what's driving it? You guessed it. AI's crazy, insatiable appetite for power.
Now here's where it gets really interesting and kind of scary. We're on a collision course. We've got this rocket ship of demand for power that's about to slam into a grid that's, well, old and falling apart. Listen to this quote from Cliff Pompey. Approximately 70% of the grid is approaching the end of its life cycle. That is a recipe for a massive supply crisis. So what happens when demand skyrockets and the supply can't keep up? You get a massive logjam. I mean, imagine building $1 billion data center and then being told you have to wait 4 years just to plug it in. That's happening right now. So companies are taking matters into their own hands. They are literally building their own power plants using natural gas. And in a really fascinating twist, they're helping spark a comeback for nuclear energy.
All right, let's move up to the next layer. Once you've secured the power, you need the brains of the operation, the specialized silicon chips that actually run the AI models. And this is where we find our next major choke point.
The best way to think about the AI chip industry is like a fortress, a really, really well-guarded fortress. There's this massive economic moat around it, and only a tiny handful of companies hold the keys to the gate. It doesn't matter if you're a small startup or a tech giant like Google, you have to get past these gatekeepers. So who are these gatekeepers? Well, at the top, you've got the designer, NVIDIA. Their GPUs are basically the poster child for AI. But here's the twist. NVIDIA doesn't actually make its own chips. For that, they have to go to the master fabricator, TSMC in Taiwan. And the company that builds the incredible, almost magical machines that TSMC uses to make the chips, that's a Dutch company called ASML. The three of them form this kind of iron triangle that controls everything. And this part is absolutely crucial. You hear all the time about Google, Amazon, or Microsoft designing their own custom chips to compete with NVIDIA. But guess what? They all have to go to the exact same factory to get them made, TSMC. This means that physical manufacturing of chips is the single deepest choke point in the entire AI ecosystem. Okay, so let's say you've managed to get power and you've gotten your hands on some of those precious processors. The next problem is feeding them. These chips are so powerful, they're like Formula One engines. You can't just put regular gas in them. They need a special kind of fuel, a super fast memory that has become our next strategic and incredibly scarce bottleneck. Just look at this projection for 2026. AI data centers are on pace to consume 70% of the entire world's supply of the most advanced type of memory. Now think about what that means. It leaves just 30% for everything else. Your phone, your laptop, your car,
Everything is competing for the leftovers.
This special AI fuel is called high bandwidth memory, or HBM. And right now, there's this intense high-stakes race happening between basically just three companies, Samsung, SK Hynix, and Micron, to produce the next generation. They are all betting billions on their own unique tech, and whoever gets there first is going to have enormous power.
And this shortage isn't some far-off problem, it's happening right now. Get this, the demand is so insane that 2 of those 3 main suppliers have already sold out their entire planned production for 2026. Yeah, you heard that right. If you're a company that hasn't placed an order yet, you are already too late.
So let's put it all together. You've got the power crunch, the chip choke point, and the memory wall. What do you get when you mix all that? You get a powerful new reality that's splitting the entire AI industry into 2 very distinct camps, the haves and the have-nots.
And here's a number that really drives the point home. Last year, only 54% of corporate AI pilot projects actually made it to full-scale production. That means almost half of all projects failed to launch. And the main reason for that massive failure rate, all of these physical hurdles we've just talked about.
This phenomenon actually has a name: pilot purgatory. It's where most companies get stuck. They have these brilliant ideas, they run successful small-scale tests, but the second they try to scale up, bam, they hit the infrastructure wall. They can't get the power, they can't get the chips, they can't get the memory, and their AI ambitions just die right there.
So this is what that divide looks like. On one side, you have the haves. These are the hyperscalers: Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, and OpenAI. They use their massive bank accounts to just lock in the supply of everything they need for years in advance. And on the other side, well, you've got the have-nots, which is pretty much everyone else. They're left to deal with delays, soaring costs, and that dreaded pilot purgatory. It's a classic case of the rich getting richer.
And when I say massive bank accounts, the numbers are just astronomical. Look at these spending projections for 2026. Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and Meta are each expected to spend over $100 billion in a single year. They're using overwhelming financial force to buy up the entire world's limited supply of these picks and shovels, making it nearly impossible for anyone else to even get in the game.
So this leaves us with a final, really provocative question. We tend to think of AI's future as being limitless, defined only by our own imagination and creativity. But what if that's wrong? What if the next decade of AI progress isn't defined by brilliant new algorithms, but by the boring, physical, real-world constraints of power, silicon, and steel?
And finally, just a quick but very important note. This analysis is for educational purposes only. It is absolutely not investment advice. Every investment involves risk, so you should always do your own research and consult with a qualified financial professional before making any decisions.